Taylor Ward is officially off the table as a target for the Royals. What do we make of it, and who could they turn to next? We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering what to expect from this channel, we come to you Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length, and Friday being our Mailbag Friday, where you can send in a question, and we will get to that answer in that episode. We try to answer everybody's question, and during the off-season, we are usually able to. Now, before we dive into our first segment, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. The news broke last night that the Baltimore Orioles were acquiring Taylor Ward in exchange for Grayson Rodriguez, a former top two pitcher in that Baltimore rotation. And then due to injury, he wasn't able to pitch last year. And I believe his 2024 season was cut a little bit short as well. But it officially ended any hopes of the Royals landing Taylor Ward. And if you've listened to me long enough, you would know that we have brought him up more than a few times. And almost in a joking manner from time to time of, well, it makes sense. The Angels are shopping Taylor Ward, and he's a perfect fit for the Royals. Well, now we can put that to rest until maybe the trade deadline if the Orioles are out of it and the Royals are in it, because we do know that Taylor Ward's a pending free agent next year. So that would mean he could be a trade chip if the Orioles are out of it. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, and we're not going to get into who and who won't be in it at the trade deadline of 2026. I want to go over the details of this trade and what the Royals would have likely had to give up if Taylor Ward was going to be coming to Kansas City. So for starters, the Orioles, I don't quite get the process in going for Taylor Ward. And I promise I'm not saying that because the Royals didn't land him. I'm simply going about the way of they signed Tyler O'Neill to a 3-year deal. He's a very expensive player on that roster. He wasn't that great last year. He opted back into his contract, or he didn't opt out, I should say. And he can really only play left field, right? That's his lone position there. And Taylor Ward, though we have seen him play a few positions, I'm sure they acquired him to play left field. So you're just going to have to move around some pieces there. And I would have thought that the Orioles, coming off of what they did last year, they wouldn't want to be giving up pitching, because pitching was their thorn in the side, if you will, all of last year. I mean, they never got any stability in that rotation after letting Corbin Burnes walk in free agency, and he eventually signed with the Diamondbacks, and his season was cut short due to Tommy John. But Grayson Rodriguez was one of those arms 2 years ago that was, in my opinion, the prize piece. Like, you looked at him and you looked at the stuff, and that was frontline potential. That was true ace potential. And the Angels, though I have criticized them before and how they've operated as a front office, I really like this deal for them. Grayson Rodriguez is 26. In fact, he just turned 26, if I'm not mistaken. And he's got 5 years of control, and he's supposed to be healthy by spring training. Now, that's all a big if, right? He could be a starter, a frontline starter. He could stay healthy. If this happens, he's going to be great. And the Orioles needed a bat. Taylor Ward is a great power bat for that lineup. He is going to have to deal with a much deeper left field than he did in Anaheim, but still a good power bat for that lineup. I just feel that the upside is far more in favor of the Angels here. And an Angels team that wants to reload their rotation. They feel good about a couple of the guys. But again, going back to that if part, if Grayson Rodriguez is healthy, you not only get him for this year, you got him for a couple of years and for cheap. The Orioles are trying to capitalize on maybe their only year with Taylor Ward. And that's where I bring in the Royals here, because there's no doubt in my mind the Royals called about Taylor Ward. There's no way they didn't, is what I'm getting at here. They have tried before. Names like Carter Jensen would come up, and they said, no way. We're not giving you our soon-to-be catcher of the future up for maybe a year of Taylor Ward or 2 years of Taylor Ward. And so comparing these guys, my first thought was, well, Chris Bubich, right? Grayson Rodriguez missed all of 2025, missed part of 2024, so they're not concerned about his injuries. So I thought about Chris Bubich, right? Chris Bubich had Tommy John, then he had the rotator cuff strain. Their numbers were quite comparable, to be honest with you. Like Grayson Rodriguez in 2024 was not far off of what Chris Bubich did in 2025. And Bubich, has more of the recency bias here, right? You saw what he did last year. It's been over a year since we've seen Grayson Rodriguez throw at the big league level. So Bubich was my thought. And then I went back to, well, Bubich is going to be a free agent. And Bubich is 28. So Rodriguez, 2 years younger, 3 more years of control or 4 more years of control. That's a better bet for the Angels than Bubich. So my thought then went to, well, the Angels, if they were to move Taylor Ward and trade him to Kansas City, I don't think they were asking for Chris Bubich. I think they were asking for Noah Cameron. Noah Cameron coming off finishing 4th in Rookie of the Year voting. He's 26, like Rodriguez. He's not a free agent until 2032. That, to me, is what the Angels were looking for in exchange for Taylor Ward, and I'm not sure the Royals would have ever really contemplated that. We got the report from Jeff Passan yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe it was, that they feel the offers have been too light for Chris Bubich. Well, I don't believe it's the same thing for Noah Cameron. And the only bump in the road, if you're Noah Cameron or if you're the Royals trying to deal Noah Cameron, is that he's only done it once. He's coming off a rookie season. He was never a top-end prospect. And teams would say, well, you can't ask for the moon for a guy that may have just pitched his best season at the big league level. With Chris Bubich, I feel it's more so injury concern and him also being a free agent. But I also like the thought process for J.J. Picollo of we're not just trading these guys for a rental player, right? If they're going to move Chris Bubich or Noah Cameron, and you can mark my words with this, it's going to be for a big name player with multiple years of control. Now, maybe I should walk back big name player because I don't want people to misconstrue that, right? It doesn't mean Jarren Duran or bust. But we know J.J. Picollo wants to acquire a bat that has those multiple years of control. So they might have entertained Taylor Ward. But the minute that Noah Cameron came into play, that just feels like you're giving up multiple years of control, a good starting pitcher, a young starting pitcher for a guy that did hit 30-plus home runs and drive in over 100. But he's not a well-rounded bat. And I'm not trying to talk down Taylor Ward after talking him up for months. I mean, I definitely saw the holes in Taylor Ward's game. I mean, there were times that he was hitting low 200s. And even if you have the power, the Royals have a couple guys like that are the lower OBP, lower average guys, but have some pop, have some power there. And yes, he's the right-handed bat that could have just been plugged into left field. The fit was there. The cost to go and get him was not. And that's where the Royals need to be aggressive, but not reckless. Right? Adding Taylor Ward to this offense would have been a boost. But for 1 year, that's where I would pump the brakes a little bit. So I look at the Angels. Is there anybody else you could go and get? Well, yeah, the obvious answer is Joe Adell. You might be more inclined to move a Noah Cameron if you were to get Joe Adell in return, who's still in his 20s, who's coming off of a career year, a tremendous year, can play all 3 outfield spots, is a right-handed bat, but you're trading a guy coming off a career year for a guy coming off of a career year with multiple years of control. That feels like a better deal if you are to move Noah Cameron and keep Chris Bubich. But this is where you're going to have to weigh the options here. If you're trading Chris Bubich, you got to understand if it's 1-for-1, the return's not going to be as heavy as it would be for Noah Cameron. But if you trade Noah Cameron, yes, you're going to keep Chris Bubich, but you might only have him for a year unless you want to go about an extension. It's why I go back and forth constantly about who is the more intriguing trade chip or who the Royals would be more inclined to move. I feel it's still Chris Bubich, but if you're trading Chris Bubich, you're going to have to include a prospect or two. With Noah Cameron, you're probably not having to include a Blake Mitchell, right? So that's what you need to weigh if you're JJ Piccolo. But with Taylor Ward off the board, it's not the end of the world because I felt that it might have been a slight overpay from the Baltimore Orioles. On the flip side, because I don't want to completely trash Baltimore in this segment, if Taylor Ward is a 30 home run bat and drives in over 100 for the Orioles in a bounce back year for them, there's still that chance that Grayson Rodriguez is not the same pitcher that he was in 2024. And the Angels, though trying to build their rotation, just took out a huge piece of a lineup that does have some good upside. So if the Orioles are trying to strike now, I didn't get the idea of trading away pitching, which you didn't have a lot of to begin with, for a bat. But maybe you're trying to just lean into that identity of being a bashing offense, and then you just try to piece it together in the rotation. But to have a bashing offense, they're going to have multiple guys turn things around in 2026. Now that Taylor Ward is off the board in 2026, who should the Royals turn to, and who should they trade in a deal to get that bat? I know we've been asking that a lot, but always love your guys' thoughts and opinions. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, 2 Royals first-rounders were left unprotected going into the Rule 5 draft. Do we agree with that decision? We'll dive into it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Want to tell you about the one and only sponsor in tonight's episode, which is FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. There's 2 great games in college basketball tonight. Same thing for last night, and I got both my picks right on the Champions Classic. I'll go money line again for the 2 games involving UConn and Arizona. I'll take the money line on UConn. Then there's Alabama and Illinois. I will take the money line on the Crimson Tide to win that game, and I'm going to do so over on FanDuel. So the Royals had to protect a few guys going into the Rule 5 draft, and they decided to land on Ben Kudrna, the former Blue Eye Southwest Timberwolf, and then also Steven Zobak, a former college arm that had a bit of a down year in 2025, but is looking to improve in 26 and maybe have a chance to get into the Royals bullpen at some point in the season. And that is certainly possible given his age, given his status at the minor league level. That could be a possibility, which is why they protected him. And I always thought that he had good stuff and have been impressed by him during spring training and the couple times I've been down there. Who they left off of it that caught my eye was Frank Mozzicato, former 7th overall pick in 2021. And then their first round pick the following year, which was Gavin Cross, who went, I believe, 8th or 9th in that draft. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, but those are the 2 guys that are now available to be taken in the Rule 5 draft. And I should start off by saying I don't believe that either of them are going to be taken. I mean, the Royals understand that with leaving former first rounders available in the Rule 5 draft, that's immediately going to pop to any scout. Why is this first rounder being left unprotected, let alone a first rounder that is only 21 or 22 years old? Well, we'll start it off with Frank Mozzicato, that I have just lost my interest in him as a true prospect because the stuff hasn't been as impressive the last few years. I thought that when he was brand new into the organization, that his low or upper 80s fastball, low 90s fastball with a power curveball was going to increase each and every year. It was going to get better and better and better, and it hasn't been that case. And every time he's gotten moved up to a level, it's taken him a while to adjust to that competition. And we saw him get the bump to Quad Cities, took him a little bit, saw him get the bump to AA Northwest Arkansas, really struggled. And I feel the Royals are at a point where they're confident in developing pitching at the lower level. But when it comes to protecting guys on your 40-man roster that are eligible to be taken in the Rule 5 draft. You look at a guy like Steven Zobak. Steven Zobak is the perfect pitcher for a struggling team to put a claim on, to draft in the Rule 5. You have a guy who's more of an older prospect, is in AAA or AA when you look across. I mean, Brad Keller was a guy that was in AA. The Royals took a chance on him. And most of the time, these guys don't work out, but you have those success stories like Joakim Soria. But guys that are on the cusp of AAA or are in AAA and have good, powerful stuff, they stand out to big league teams. Steven Zobak is that guy. And Ben Kudrna is one of the better prospects in the Royals organization, has a firm fastball, good movement, really has improved on his secondary offerings. He would be very enticing to a team to take and then stash him in the bullpen, right? Because we know with the Rule 5 draft, you have to keep that guy on your roster the entire year or you have to send him back. Now, there are some loopholes we've seen before where they end up on the 15-day IL, so they're not on the 60-day where that moves them off the 40-man. If they're taking out the 40-man or the 26-man at any point, they have to get sent back to the team that they were drafted from. So for the Royals, they had Matt Sauer in 2024. Didn't last that long with the team. Had to send him back to New York. Believe he pitched with the Dodgers last year at some point. I mean, he's bounced around a little bit. But in cases like this, you feel that with pitchers, they are more likely to be taken just because they have a better chance of succeeding. You put them in the bullpen, where if you take a hitter, you're putting them on the bench. Very rarely are they going to win a starting job from the get-go, which is why you leave Gavin Cross off the list. Gavin Cross had horrific numbers for a large portion of the year. And though you have that first-round tie to him, he has never really put it together for an extended period of time. I'm not sure that a big league team is going to take a chance on that because you're filling a spot on your 26-man roster. The only teams that would make sense, like for Gavin Cross, Colorado might make sense because you're just trying to fill holes on that roster. But I'm not sure the upside is really there other than having first-rounder tied to your name. With Mozzicato, I give it such a low chance that he's going to be taken. I could always be wrong. I'm not inside the minds of all the organizations out there and the scouts that are looking into the Royals organization. But to protect Steven Zobak and Ben Kudrna, that makes sense to me because their stuff, really, I do believe, could play right now at the big league level. You may not have the most success, but with a mid-90s fastball, a good secondary offering, with the right coaching, yes, they're thrown into the fire, but there could be some upside there. I'm not sure you could take Frank Mozzicato and his upper 80s, low 90s fastball with little command and find him a good role into a big league bullpen or to be a spot starter for somebody, right? That there are organizations out there that are going to pass on a lot of these guys. And there's been multiple Rule 5 drafts where, people are talked up. I've read multiple articles about the best names out there, and I've lost interest in the Rule 5 draft because for the most part, I don't see the Royals taking guys anymore. Back when they were rebuilding and they needed to fill out spots on the team, I was very invested in the Rule 5 draft and which guys made a lot of sense and which guys would be fun to watch through spring training and getting some opportunities. Now, I hope they don't fill up spots on their 26-man roster with Rule 5 guys because there's a reason that Rule 5 guys are available. It's clear that those organizations just don't have a spot for them, or they've been pitching at the minor league level long enough and they've just almost given up on them as a prospect. Not the case for everybody. I'm not trying to say that the Royals have given up on Frank Mozzicato or Gavin Cross, but you weigh the options. Who is more likely to be taken? And they decided to go with an older prospect in Steven Zobak. And then you also have a guy like Ben Kudrna, local kid, has really been improving each and every year. And you've got a guy like Frank Mozzicato who hasn't really improved each and every year. And same goes for Gavin Cross. And it's unlikely that those guys are going to be taken. Now, I did think that Daniel Vasquez was going to be protected, was at the Arizona Fall League, played really well. I see a lot of Michael Garcia to his game and overall traits like athletic ability. He's not quite Alberto Mondesi, but I do see some similarities defensively where he's got a good arm, he's got good range, and the way he's just smooth with his mechanics reminds me a lot of Mondesi, which was always a glowing part of his game. But I see a Michael Garcia Mondesi hybrid in Vasquez. He's still 21 years old, can get a lot better at the plate. Royals decide to leave him off on adding him to the 40-man roster. But still, I go back to in the Rule 5 draft, it's less likely that a hitter is going to be taken. It's almost always pitchers because it's just easier to handle your roster when you're going after a pitcher. With a hitter, I mean, you got to be really sure that you are seeing what nobody else is seeing. And you don't want to take a guy from high A, which is, I believe, where Vasquez finished the year. If not, it was low A Columbia. You were taking a guy and making that jump where he's not getting everyday at-bats, and you can't send him to the minor leagues to reset it all. He's got to be on your big league roster the rest of the year. So a lot of these guys that are not protected, most organizations know who is and who is not expected to be taken. I know that last year or 2 years ago, somebody in the Royals organization got taken, and it was a big surprise. And I actually thought that it was a bad look to have that guy taken from the Royals organization, but he ended up getting sent back. I don't recall who it was off the top of my head. I'll have to look after the episode, but I didn't have any issues with who they added. Ben Kudrna and Steven Zobak would have had a high chance of being taken. Mozicato and Cross, not so much. Could always be wrong, and they could be taken in the Rule 5 draft, but I see a lot of teams, even the bad ones that are trying to rebuild, passing on this year's class. Do you believe anybody the Royals left off are going to be taken in the Rule 5 draft? And what do you make of Zobak and Ben Kudrna being added to the 40-man? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, I said this on Twitter, and you can always follow me there, but the free agent options, especially in the outfield, just don't look that promising for the Royals anymore after some guys accepted a qualifying offer the other day. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. One of the other deadlines that happened in baseball yesterday was the qualifying offers, right? They had their ability to deny it, basically, not accept the qualifying offer, or they could accept it, which most of them were, $22 million, I believe it was. And there were a few names that surprised me. Now, there were rumblings that someone like Gleyber Torres, who we did an episode on of maybe being a potential fit in Kansas City at second base, there were rumblings that he was going to accept it. He was coming off a one-year deal, and instead of trying to haggle over a 2 or 3 year deal and what the money would be worth, going back to Detroit on a one-year deal worth $22 million, that's a pretty good deal for Gleyber Torres, which is what I imagine he thought. The market's not going to be very favorable for second baseman. I'm coming off an all-star year. Teams are going to be pointing out my weaknesses. I'd rather go back to Detroit and play on a very friendly one-year contract and then go through this again in the offseason next year. Trent Grisham really surprised me with what the outfield market was going to be and how everybody was going to put their focus on Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger, but the ones that missed out on him might have given Trent Grisham that 4-year deal that he was expected to get. That's why it surprised me a little bit that Grisham decided to accept the $22 million there on the 1 year, because I thought he'd have a pretty good market. He was in that second tier, which maybe that's why he did it. He doesn't want to be included in the second tier. He wants to wait till Bellinger gets his big contract and Tucker gets his big contract, and he'll try it again next offseason. But you're coming off a 30-plus home run season. This felt like the time to cash in, and if it wasn't the Yankees, because we know the Yankees are making it a priority to go after Cody Bellinger, and teams are making it a priority to go after Kyle Tucker, you would have gotten that third team that couldn't land either, needing to get that big-name outfielder. And Trent Grisham is kind of in that category. If you're not going after Tucker, you're not going after Bellinger, he's one of those names that would make a lot of sense for a lot of teams, including the Royals. But now that Trent Grisham has accepted the qualifying offer, I don't see many names out there, outfield-wise, that look good for the Royals. There are platoon options. There's plenty of them. There's Harrison Bader, right? There's Rob Refsnyder. There's Austin Hayes. There's Mike Yastrzemski. There are platoon options that you could put in left field or you could put in right field, but they're not the bat you're looking for. They are not the bat that is going to change this lineup. If anything, they give you depth. They lengthen you out a little bit. But to get this bat, to get the left fielder that they're searching for, I had 85% confidence yesterday. I'm at like 95 to 97. It has to be through trade. It is going to be through trade because I look at who's out there in free agency. And it just doesn't seem like anybody is going to line up. I have heard the guys that you have put in the comment page. I have heard people on Twitter say, what about this guy? Or would this guy make any sense? And a lot of the options I read into and try to dig up new trade proposals and go through a bunch of hypotheticals, almost all of them now are through trade. Very few do I dive into with free agency because I don't see it being that likely. The biggest name of the bunch I just mentioned would be Harrison Bader. And if they got Harrison Bader to be their platoon center fielder or platoon right fielder, he's not the bat that they are talking about. And we discussed Annie Rogers' article the other day, how she said there's a plethora of pitching that they have, and it's very likely they're going to move one of those names to help them get some bats. Because that's the theme of this offseason. They have to get offensive help. And you have to have that confidence of replenishing the rotation in the bullpen each and every year. When you have a plethora of pitching, you've got 8 guys that can start. Not all 8 of them are going to start as much as you would like them to. And you can't go into each and every year hanging on to them and saying, well, we can't trade them because somebody might get hurt. That's the case across baseball. Injuries are going to happen. You got to be prepared for them. But this Royals team has to get offense. They have to get a big bat or 2 if they expect to compete at the top half of the Central and the top half of the American League. If they kept all 8 of their pitchers that could start, I don't see them getting to the postseason with the current offense they do have. What you have to prepare for is slight regression from a couple of the guys that really improved in 2025, right? I'm not going into each and every year saying Vinny Pasquantino has to be a 30 home run, 100-plus RBI guy. I can't do that. And even though I've joked about in the past, and I would say joking, but also had a tad bit seriousness to it, I'm not going to ask Bobby Witt Jr. to hit 330 and have a 10-WAR season every single year. You got to expect that some guys are going to have a little bit of dip in production. Maikel Garcia, same thing. So how do I better those chances of making them repeat those that year, right? The previous year. How do I lessen the chance of a down year? Regression. How do I lessen that chance? Well, you got to make the offense a lot more well-rounded. And the only way to do that now, in my opinion, is through trade. I don't see it being through free agency. I don't see there being a deal that makes the perfect sense unless it's a 1-year deal for a platoon bat in right field. That's what I see the Royals spending money on, and maybe a bullpen arm or 2 the closer we get to spring training. But to land that bat, the bat that can make a difference, that has to be through trade. And already going into the offseason, I was not sold on what the free agent pool had to offer. And even last year, I wasn't sold because the constant theme of the Royals has been they don't have an outfield. They don't have a good enough outfield. And when is enough enough? When are you going to reach an offseason where you say, I got to make it happen? I have to go out there and improve this group, or somebody has to step up, right? They've had 2 to 3 years in a row where it was, we're banking on somebody to step up or bounce back. Those days have to be done. You have to hit on an outfield target, if not 2. And to me, the higher chance of hitting on someone is through trade. Because in free agency, you don't want to get into a debate, a negotiation with Harrison Bader over 2 or 3 years and the money involved. You want to be able to go and trade for somebody. Yes, you would be giving up talent, but go trade for somebody where you might have them for 4 more years or 5 more years if you wanted to, because they have that team control and they're cheaper and maybe younger than the guys that are out there. That's the other part here. There's not many young free agents out there. Most of these guys are age 30 and up, wanting multiple year deals. And that just doesn't line up with where the Royals are at. It feels far more likely they're going to make a trade, and I feel very confident in them doing so. Do you believe that the only way to get that left fielder is through trade? If not, let us know the free agent target that you are really evaluating. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, planning to get you another morning episode, probably before noon. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.